The invasion of Zerinthia. The planet Zerinthia was known for its beauty and peace. Its people, the Zerinthians, lived in harmony, guided by their powerful queen, the Zerinthian matriarch. She was wise, calm, and led with a deep connection to her people through her telepathic abilities. Zerinthia was not a world of war. They had never known real conflict, only peace and prosperity. But all of that changed the day the dereliths came. The dereliths were a cruel and violent race. They traveled across the galaxy, conquering planets and enslaving their people. When they discovered the Zerinthians and their telepathic powers, they saw an opportunity to exploit them. With their advanced warships and weapons, the dereliths launched a surprise attack on Zerinthia. The Zerinthians were not prepared. Their peaceful cities were no match for the dereliths' powerful war machines. In the royal palace, the Zerinthian matriarch stood with her two daughters, Elira and Nayara. Elira, the older daughter, was strong and brave like her mother. She was ready to fight, even though she knew they had little chance. Nayara, the younger daughter, was more gentle and hopeful. She looked up at her mother, worried and confused by the chaos happening outside. "Mother, what are we going to do?" Nayara asked, her voice trembling. The matriarch placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "We must stay calm. There is still hope," she said softly, though her eyes showed concern. The matriarch knew that their people were in great danger. The dereliths wanted to capture her daughters, to use their powerful telepathic abilities for their own evil purposes. But she couldn't let that happen. Just as she was about to send her daughters into hiding, the palace doors burst open. A group of soldiers entered, led by a man in armor. He was human, and his name was Captain Marcus Kane. Captain Kane and his small team of soldiers had arrived on Zerinthia as part of a peacekeeping mission from the Human Alliance, but they were too late to stop the invasion. The dereliths had already begun their attack, and the situation was dire. Still, Kane wasn't the type of man to back down. Even against impossible odds, he refused to abandon the Zerinthians. "We don't have much time," Kane said quickly, his eyes scanning the room. "The dereliths are coming. We need to get you and your daughters to safety." The matriarch looked at him, her heart heavy. She could sense his courage, but she knew this human soldier couldn't save everyone. The Zerinthians were already falling, but maybe, just maybe, Kane could save her daughters. With a deep breath, the matriarch made a decision. She turned to Elira and Nayara. "You will go with him," she said, her voice calm but firm. Elira stepped forward, her eyes hard. "A human. We should stay and fight." But the matriarch shook her head. "You must survive. You are the future of our people." Kane looked at the two daughters, then back at the matriarch. "I'll protect them," he said, his voice steady. "I promise." The matriarch nodded. She knew this human was their last hope. The fate of her daughters, and perhaps all of Zerinthia, was now in his hands. As the sounds of the derelith forces grew louder, Kane led Elira and Nayara out of the palace, knowing their journey to safety had only just begun. The battle for Zerinthia. As Captain Marcus Kane led Elira and Nayara away from the royal palace, the skies above Zerinthia burned with the red glow of the invading derelith warships. The peaceful planet was under siege. Explosions rocked the ground as Zerinthians, untrained for battle, ran for cover. The air was filled with the screams of those who had never known war until now. Kane moved quickly, keeping the two sisters close behind him. His mind raced as he thought of a plan. The human soldiers with him were few, and the dereliths were many. They had no real chance of winning this fight, but Kane refused to give up. He had promised the Zerinthian matriarch that he would protect her daughters, and he intended to keep that promise. "We can't keep running," Elira said, her voice sharp with frustration. She had always been a warrior at heart, though her people were not made for battle. Her bright blue eyes glowed with the energy of her telepathic powers. "We should fight back. We can use our powers to help." But Kane shook his head as they ran through the destroyed streets. "We're outnumbered," he said. If we stop now, we won't stand a chance. We need to reach a safe point where we can regroup and plan. Elira clenched her fists, clearly frustrated. Nyara, the younger sister, stayed quiet, her face pale with fear. She looked around at the destruction, feeling the pain of her people through her telepathic bond. It was overwhelming. She had never felt anything like this before. The group finally made it to a small outpost on the edge of the city. Kane's remaining soldiers were there, but their numbers were small. They had already lost many in the battle. The human soldiers were injured, tired, and running low on supplies. "We can't hold out much longer," one of Kane's men said grimly, wiping sweat from his brow. "The dereliths are pushing through the city. We need to fall back." But Kane wasn't ready to retreat. He knew that if they left now, the Zerinthians would be enslaved, and the matriarch's sacrifice would be in vain. He turned to Elira and Nyara. "Your telepathic powers, can they reach the dereliths?" he asked. Elira frowned. "We've never used our powers like that before. We can communicate and sense emotions, but the dereliths are different. They're shielded somehow. It won't be easy." "We have to try," Kane said firmly. "It's the only chance we've got. If we can disrupt their forces, even for a moment, we might be able to break through and escape the city." Elira hesitated but finally nodded. "Fine. I'll do it. But you need to hold them off." Kane nodded, turning to his soldiers. "Hold this line. No matter what happens, don't let the dereliths through." The derelith forces soon arrived, their towering machines crushing everything in their path. Kane and his men fought bravely, firing their weapons and using every bit of cover they could find. Explosions shook the ground, but they held their ground, knowing that their lives, and the fate of Zerinthia, depended on it. Meanwhile, Elira closed her eyes and focused all her energy. She reached out with her mind, feeling for the alien invaders. It was like pushing through a thick fog, but finally, she found them. She sent out a powerful mental wave, disrupting the derelith's communications. For a brief moment, the derelith forces hesitated, confused by the sudden break in their systems. "Now," Kane shouted. His soldiers pushed forward, taking advantage of the distraction. They managed to break through the enemy lines, escaping the city just as it fell into chaos. But Kane knew this was only the beginning. The battle for Zerinthia was far from over. Hunted across the stars, the small ship sped through the dark, cold expanse of space. Captain Marcus Kane sat in the pilot's seat, his hand steady on the controls. Behind him, Elira and Nyara sat quietly, staring out into the endless void. The stars glittered like distant flames, but none of them offered any warmth or safety. They were being hunted. After escaping Zerinthia, the group had hoped to find a moment to rest. But the dereliths were relentless. Their warships were fast, and their thirst for power endless. The derelith general, a fierce and cruel leader, wanted the Zerinthian sisters captured at all costs. Their telepathic powers were the key to controlling entire worlds, and he would stop at nothing to claim them. "They're still following us," Kane said, glancing at the radar. A red blip flashed on the screen, marking the position of the derelith ship. "We can't outrun them forever." Elira, sitting with her arms crossed, stared at Kane. "We should fight them," she said, her voice firm. "We've been running for days. We need to face them head-on." Kane shook his head. "If we stop to fight, we won't stand a chance. They outnumber us, and their ship is much stronger. We need to find a safe place to hide." "But where can we hide?" Nyara asked softly, her eyes wide with fear. The younger sister had grown quieter with each passing day, the weight of their situation pressing down on her. She felt the constant tension, the danger closing in around them, and it scared her. She wasn't like Elira, who thrived in chaos. Nyara wanted peace, but it seemed farther away than ever. Kane didn't have an answer. Every time they thought they had lost the dereliths, the enemy ship appeared again. It was like they had nowhere to run in the vast galaxy. The derelict had eyes everywhere. Suddenly, the ship's alarm blared, filling the cockpit with loud, urgent beeping. Kane's eyes flicked to the screen, and his stomach sank. "They've locked onto us," he said grimly. "They're preparing to fire." Before anyone could react, the ship shook violently. An explosion echoed through the hull as a blast hit them from behind. Sparks flew from the control panel, and the lights flickered. Elira grabbed her seat to steady herself as Nyara let out a frightened gasp. "We're going down," Kane shouted, struggling with the controls. The ship spiraled out of control, heading toward a nearby planet covered in thick clouds and rocky terrain. Kane gritted his teeth, trying to slow their descent, but the damage was too severe. They were going to crash. The ship hit the ground hard, skidding across the rocky surface before finally coming to a stop. The cabin filled with smoke, and the sound of crackling metal filled the air. For a moment, everything was silent. Kane coughed and pulled himself up. "Is everyone okay?" he asked, looking back at Elira and Nyara. "I'm fine," Elira replied, helping her sister up. Nyara nodded, shaken but unharmed. But before they could regroup, a dark shadow loomed over the wrecked ship. Kane's heart sank as he looked up and saw the derelict warship hovering above them. The derelict general had found them. "They're here," Kane said, his voice low. "We need to move. Now." Elira's eyes narrowed, her anger rising. "We won't run anymore," she said. "It's time to fight back." Kane knew she was right. They couldn't run forever. The derelicts would never stop hunting them. The only way to end this was to face them head-on. As the derelict soldiers began to descend from their ship, weapons drawn, Kane, Elira, and Nyara prepared for the fight of their lives. They were no longer just running. Now, they were ready to stand their ground. The safe haven. The battered ship limped through space, its engines barely holding together after the crash. Captain Marcus Kane had managed to get them off the planet, but they had been lucky, too lucky. The derelicts were still out there, searching for them. They needed to find a place to hide, somewhere the derelicts wouldn't follow, somewhere safe. Elira and Nyara sat in the back of the ship, exhausted from the last battle. Elira's face was hard as stone, her mind still focused on the fight. Nyara, on the other hand, looked pale and shaken, her eyes full of worry. Kane scanned the star maps, searching for a place they could land. He knew they couldn't keep flying in a broken ship. His fingers tapped on the controls until finally, a small, unmarked planet appeared on the screen. "We're heading to Haven 7, Kane said, breaking the silence. "It's an outlaw planet in the outer rim. No governments, no laws, and best of all, no derelict patrols." Elira raised an eyebrow. "Outlaws? You think we'll be safe there?" Kane nodded. "It's a dangerous place, but the derelicts won't follow us there. They avoid it. Too many unpredictable people and creatures. We can hide for a while and repair the ship." The ship entered Haven 7's atmosphere, and the landscape below came into view. The planet was covered in rugged terrain, with rocky mountains and dense forests. The settlements were small, mostly made of scavenged materials, and surrounded by makeshift defenses. It was a wild, lawless place, but for now, it would be their sanctuary. As they landed, Kane gave the sisters a warning. "Stay close. The people here don't trust outsiders, and if they find out who you are, we'll have more problems than the derelicts." The trio stepped out of the ship, the air heavy with dust and the smell of machinery. Around them, rough-looking beings from various species moved through the market square, selling weapons, stolen technology, and other shady goods. Eyes lingered on them, sizing them up, but no one made a move. Yet, Kane led them through the crowd, heading toward a hidden bunker at the edge of the settlement. It belonged to an old contact of his, a human named Rilo, who used to be part of the rebellion. Rilo was a gruff, older man with a mechanical arm and a long history of running from the law. "Marcus Kane," Rilo said with a grin as he opened the door. Haven't seen you in years. You must be in trouble if you've come to a place like this." Kane smiled slightly. "You could say that. We need a safe place to lay low and repair our ship." Rilo's eyes flicked to Elira and Mayara, and his smile faded. "Who are they?" Kane hesitated for a moment. "Friends. They're being hunted by the Dereliths." Rilo's eyes widened. "The Dereliths. You brought that kind of heat here." "We didn't have a choice," Kane replied. "Can you help us or not?" Rilo rubbed his chin thoughtfully, then nodded. "I can help, but you should know, there are spies everywhere, even on Haven 7. If word gets out that the Dereliths are looking for them, this place won't be safe for long." "We won't stay longer than we have to," Kane promised. For now, they had found a temporary safe haven. But as Elira and Nyara rested in the small, hidden bunker, Kane couldn't shake the feeling that their time was running out. The Dereliths were still hunting them, and it was only a matter of time before they caught up again. In the shadows of Haven 7, a dangerous game of survival had just begun. The betrayal and battle. For a few days, Haven 7 had been a safe place. Captain Marcus Kane, Elira, and Nyara kept a low profile, working with Rilo to repair their ship. Kane thought they could finally catch their breath. But safety on a planet like this was always temporary, and betrayal was never far away. Late one evening, as the group sat in Rilo's hidden bunker, a soft knock came at the door. Rilo opened it to find Kira, a young scavenger he knew. She was a familiar face in the settlement, trusted by many for her knowledge of tech and ships. "Kira," Rilo greeted her. "What brings you here?" "I heard you've been working on a ship. Thought I could offer some spare parts," Kira said, her voice smooth and calm. She stepped into the bunker, giving a friendly smile to Kane and the sisters. But Elira, always alert, sensed something off. There was a strange energy in Kira's mind, a flicker of deceit. Elira caught it, but it was too late. Suddenly, Kira pulled out a small device from her pocket, slamming it on the table. It flashed bright red. A signal. Before anyone could react, the door burst open, and armed Derelith soldiers stormed in. They wore heavy black armor, their faces hidden by helmets. Kane jumped up, reaching for his weapon, but a blast from one of the soldiers knocked him back. "You betrayed us," Elira shouted, her eyes glowing with the fire of her telepathic power as she turned to Kira. Kira smirked. "The Dereliths pay well. You're worth more than a few spare parts, princess." The room erupted into chaos. Kane fired at the soldiers, ducking behind a metal crate for cover. Rilo, surprised by the sudden attack, grabbed a weapon from the wall and joined the fight. Elira and Nyara, though still exhausted, used their telepathic abilities to create confusion, sending waves of mental interference at the Derelith soldiers. But the Dereliths were prepared. Their helmets shielded them from the full force of the sisters' powers. They moved in swiftly, their weapons aimed at the two Zerinthian daughters. Nyara, shaking with fear, tried to focus her powers, but the enemy was closing in. Kane saw this and made a split-second decision. "Nyara, stay back," he shouted, firing at the advancing soldiers. He fought with everything he had, but he knew they were outmatched. Elira, furious, unleashed a telepathic wave so strong that several Derelith soldiers staggered back, disoriented. But even she knew they couldn't hold out much longer. There were too many of them, and Kira had led them right into a trap. Suddenly, Rilo, taking advantage of the momentary distraction, activated a hidden panel on the wall. "I have a plan," he yelled over the noise. "Back door, now." Kane, Elira, and Nyara quickly retreated through the hidden passage, their hearts pounding. They could hear the Derelith soldiers shouting orders behind them, but Rilo had slowed them down by triggering an explosion in the bunker's main room. As they ran through the dark tunnel, Kane glanced at Elira. "We trusted the wrong person," he muttered, angry at himself. Elira's eyes narrowed. That won't happen again. The small group burst out into the night, the cold wind of Haven 7 hitting their faces. Their ship was still damaged, but they had no choice. They had to flee now or be captured. "Get to the ship," Kane ordered, firing at the pursuing soldiers. Elira and Nyara rushed inside the ship as Rilo and Kane held off the remaining Derelith forces for just a few more seconds. As the ship's engines roared to life, Kane leaped into the cockpit. With a quick command, the ship lifted off, leaving the Derelith soldiers and the burning bunker behind. Safe for now, but with betrayal fresh in their minds. They knew the battle was far from over. Secrets revealed. The ship soared through space, the dark emptiness around them quiet compared to the chaos they had just escaped. Captain Marcus Kane sat in the cockpit, his hand steady on the controls. Beside him, Elira and Nyara remained silent, both still processing the betrayal that had nearly cost them their lives. Rilo had stayed behind, making sure the Derelith soldiers wouldn't follow them immediately. But Kane knew it was only a matter of time before the enemy caught up again. They needed answers, and they needed them fast. Elira, sitting with her arms crossed, broke the silence first. Why did the Dereliths go to such lengths to capture us? What do they really want with us? Kane glanced at her, then sighed. "I think it's time I tell you the truth." Elira and Nyara both looked at him, confused. "The truth?" Nyara asked, her voice soft but curious. Kane turned in his seat, facing them fully. "I wasn't just sent to Zorinthia as a peacekeeper. The Human Alliance had intel that the Dereliths were after something powerful. At first, we thought it was your planet's natural resources, but after studying the history of Zorinthia, we realized it was much more than that." Elira's brow furrowed. "What are you talking about?" Kane hesitated, then continued. "Your people's telepathic abilities aren't just a genetic trait. They're part of an ancient technology, a living power source. The Zorinthians are descendants of an old race that created the Celestial Core, a device capable of controlling minds across entire star systems." Nyara gasped, her hand covering her mouth. "Are you saying we're connected to a weapon?" "It's not exactly a weapon," Kane explained. "But in the wrong hands, like the Dereliths, it could be used to dominate entire galaxies. The core was hidden long ago, and its location was only passed down through Zorinthian bloodlines. That's why the Dereliths want you. They believe you and your sister can activate it." Elira's eyes narrowed. "You knew this, and you didn't tell us." Kane met her gaze, his expression serious. "I didn't know for sure. I wasn't going to drag you into something this dangerous without proof. But now it's clear. The Dereliths will stop at nothing to get to you." Nyara's face paled. "If they find this celestial core, what will they do?" "They'll use it to enslave every free mind in the galaxy," Kane said grimly. "That's why we have to stop them. But first, we need to find the core ourselves before they do." Elira stood up, pacing the small cabin. "So that's what this is all about. We're nothing but tools in some ancient war." "It's more than that," Kane replied. "Your mother, the Zorinthian matriarch, knew this day would come. That's why she sent you with me. She wanted you to be the ones to protect the core, to stop the Dereliths from unleashing its power." Nyara's voice trembled. "But how are we supposed to do that? We don't even know where the core is." Kane looked at them both, his expression softening. "Your telepathic abilities, combined, they hold the key. The core can only be activated by the rightful heirs of Zorinthia. That's why the Dereliths need you both alive." Elira stopped pacing, her mind racing. "Then we need to find the core first. We can't let them use it against the galaxy." Kane nodded. "I agree. But finding it won't be easy. The core's location was lost centuries ago, and the clues are hidden in places only you can access with your powers." As the reality of their situation sank in, Nyara took a deep breath, her fear slowly turning into determination. "We'll find it," she said quietly, but with strength in her voice. "We have to." Elira nodded, her fiery spirit reigniting. "We'll protect the core, and we'll stop the dereliths, no matter what it takes." Kane looked at the sisters, admiring their courage. The secrets of the past had been revealed, and now their real mission was just beginning. The final plan. The ship floated in the vast emptiness of space, far from any known planets or star systems. It was a quiet moment, but everyone on board knew the peace wouldn't last. Captain Marcus Kane, Elira, and Nyara sat around the ship's small table, their faces illuminated by the dim lights of the control panel. The weight of their mission hung heavy in the air. "We're running out of time," Kane said, breaking the silence. "The dereliths are getting closer every day. If we don't act soon, they'll find the celestial core before we do." Elira nodded, her arms crossed as she stared at the holographic map in front of them. "We need a plan, a real one this time. No more running." Nyara, who had always been the quieter of the two sisters, spoke up. "But how do we even know where to start? The core's location is hidden, and we only have fragments of ancient texts. What if we make a mistake?" Kane leaned forward, his expression serious. "We won't. We know the dereliths have been tracking ancient Zerinthian artifacts. Every time they found one, they'd gotten closer to the core. But we have something they don't." Elira looked up, her sharp eyes meeting his. "What's that?" "You," Kane said simply, pointing to the sisters. "Your powers. The core can only be accessed by those of the Zerinthian royal bloodline. That's why the dereliths need you both alive. But we can use your connection to the core to find it first." Nyara frowned. "But we don't know how to use that connection. Our powers are strong, but we've never done anything like this." Elira, however, seemed to understand what Kane was getting at. "He's right," she said, her voice steady. "We've been using our abilities to defend ourselves, but we've never tried to reach beyond that. The core is part of our legacy. If we focus, we might be able to sense where it's hidden." Kane nodded. "Exactly, but it's risky. The moment you use your powers to search for the core, the dereliths might detect it. They'll know we're close. We have to be prepared for them to come after us the second you make contact." "So it's a trap," Elira said, a small smile playing on her lips. "We find the core, and they come running." Kane smiled grimly. "It's more than a trap. It's the final move. We lure them to the core, but on our terms. We'll be ready for them." Nyara looked uncertain. "But how can we be sure we'll win? The dereliths have an army. We're just 3 people. We're not going to fight them head-on," Kane explained. "Once we reach the core, we'll use it against them. If we can activate it before they do, we can shut down their mental control systems. Their entire army is linked to the same network. If we disrupt it, they'll be powerless." Elira leaned forward, determination in her eyes. "Then we need to find the core now. We'll use our powers, draw the dereliths in, and finish this once and for all." Nyara took a deep breath and nodded. "I'm ready." Kane stood, his eyes scanning the map once more. "We have one chance. Once you start searching, there's no turning back. The dereliths will come, and we'll have to fight with everything we've got." Elira clenched her fists, her fiery spirit reignited. "Let them come. We'll be ready." With the plan set, the 3 prepared themselves for the final showdown. They knew the risks, but there was no other choice. The fate of the galaxy depended on them reaching the celestial core before the dereliths, and this time, they weren't just running from the enemy. They were going to face them head-on, and they would do whatever it took to win. As Kane fired up the ship's engines and set course for the hidden core, the final chapter of their battle began. There was no room for fear. Only the plan and the fight remained. The aftermath. The battle for the celestial core was over, but its echoes still filled the air. Captain Marcus Kane, Elira, and Nyara stood at the edge of the ancient chamber, their bodies still buzzing from the energy that had surged through them during the fight. The remnants of the derelith forces lay scattered across the ground, defeated and disoriented. The powerful energy of the core had worked, disrupting their connections and rendering them helpless. Elira looked around the chamber, taking in the sight of the ancient technology that had been hidden for centuries. "Is it really over?" she asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. Kane placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "For now, yes. The derelicts won't be able to threaten you or anyone else for a long time. But we must remain vigilant. There will always be those who seek power." Nyara stepped closer to the core, its glowing surface casting a soft light around them. "What do we do with it now?" she asked. "We can't let it fall into the wrong hands again." Kane nodded, looking at the core with a mixture of awe and caution. "We need to secure it. We can't destroy it, but we can hide it away, somewhere no one will find it. It belongs to Zorinthia, and we must protect it." Elira felt a surge of determination. "Then let's find a place, a new home for the core, away from everyone." As they discussed their next steps, they felt the ground shake slightly. From the entrance of the chamber, a group of Zorinthian warriors emerged. Their faces were grim but relieved to see the sisters alive. They had followed the sisters' signal, sensing the powerful energy of the battle. "Elira, Nyara," one of the warriors called out. "We feared the worst." Elira rushed to them, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. "It's over. We defeated the dereliths, but we lost many in the fight." The warriors nodded, their faces somber. "We will honor those who fell," one of them replied. "But we must celebrate your victory. You've saved Zorinthia from a terrible fate." As the group made their way back to the surface, the reality of their victory began to sink in. They had fought against overwhelming odds and won, but the cost had been high. They had lost friends, allies, and innocent lives in the battle. Once they emerged into the light, Kane looked at the beautiful landscape of Zorinthia, the vibrant colors of the planet shining brightly. "We did this together," he said, addressing the group. "Your bravery made the difference." Elira smiled, feeling a sense of pride swelling in her chest. "We couldn't have done it without you, Marcus. You taught us how to fight for our home." As they prepared to relocate the core, they found a hidden valley surrounded by mountains, an ideal location for their new secret. They worked together to carefully place the core in a protective chamber, using their combined powers to seal it away safely. In the following days, the people of Zorinthia began to rebuild. They mourned their losses but also celebrated their freedom. The sisters took their place as leaders, guiding their people with wisdom and strength. They held on to the lessons learned from their journey, knowing that the past would always shape their future. Kane, too, found a new purpose. He decided to stay on Zorinthia, helping the sisters train their people in defense and strategy. They would never be caught off guard again. As time passed, the scars of battle faded, but the bond between them grew stronger. They had faced darkness together and emerged victorious, forging a new path for Zorinthia. Together, they vowed to protect their home and the secrets it held, ensuring that no one would ever threaten their peace again. In the quiet moments, Elira and Nyara often gazed at the stars, reflecting on their journey. They knew that while the battle was over, their story was just beginning, and as long as they stood together, they could face anything that came their way. A future of hope. The sun rose over Zorinthia, casting warm light across the lush landscape. Elira and Nyara stood on a hill overlooking their village, watching as the people began their day. The air was filled with the sounds of laughter and chatter, a stark contrast to the tension they had felt during the battle against the dereliths. The sisters felt a sense of peace settle over them, a new beginning after the storm. "Look at them," Elira said, smiling as she pointed toward a group of children playing. "They're so full of life. It's beautiful." Nyara nodded, her heart swelling with joy. "We did this. We fought for their future." Elira turned to her sister, sensing a shadow of doubt in Nyara's eyes. "You okay?" Nyara took a deep breath. "I am. I just can't help but think about everything we lost. So many brave people fought alongside us." Elira placed a comforting hand on her sister's shoulder. We honor them by building a better future. That's what they would want. In the weeks following the battle, Zerinthia began to heal. With the celestial core hidden safely away, the sisters focused on strengthening their community. They held meetings to discuss rebuilding, sharing ideas for a brighter tomorrow. Kane, now an integral part of their leadership, helped train the villagers in self-defense and strategy, ensuring that they were prepared for any threat that might arise in the future. One day, while they were gathered in the village square, a familiar figure approached. It was Rilo, the gruff but wise man who had helped them in their darkest hour. Though he had remained behind to ensure their escape, he had kept his promise to return. "Hey there, heroes," he said with a grin, raising a hand in greeting. The villagers turned to him, their faces lighting up with recognition and respect. "Rilo," Elira called out, rushing to embrace him. "We're so glad you're back." "I couldn't stay away," he replied, looking around at the recovering village. "I heard about the victory. I had to see it for myself." Kane approached, shaking Rilo's hand. "We couldn't have done it without your help. Thank you for holding the line while we escaped." "Just doing what I could," Rilo said with a shrug, but his eyes twinkled with pride. "But I'm here now. What's the plan?" Elira exchanged glances with Nyara and Kane, then stepped forward. "We want to create a council, a place where all voices can be heard. Everyone should have a say in how we rebuild." Nyara added, "We want to make Zerinthia a place where peace and unity are the foundation. We can't let fear rule us again." Rilo nodded, impressed. "That's a noble goal. But remember, it won't be easy. You'll need to find ways to unite everyone." Kane spoke up. "We'll start by inviting everyone to the council. We'll show them that we're stronger together." As the sun began to set, the group made their way back to the village square, gathering the villagers to share their vision. The people listened intently as Elira spoke about the council, emphasizing the importance of community and collaboration. "We will build a future filled with hope and strength," she said passionately. "Together, we will protect our home and each other." The villagers responded with cheers and applause, their spirits lifted by the sisters' words. They knew that they had fought hard for this chance at a new life, and they were ready to embrace the future. Days turned into weeks, and the council began to take shape. Slowly but surely, the people of Zerinthia united, working side by side to rebuild their homes and lives. New friendships blossomed, and the air buzzed with excitement and creativity. Each person contributed their skills, whether in farming, crafting, or teaching. As Elira and Nyara watched their community grow, they felt a sense of fulfillment. They had turned a dark chapter into a story of hope. Though challenges would always arise, they faced them together. And as they looked up at the stars shining brightly over Zerinthia, they knew that their journey was far from over. The future held endless possibilities, and they were ready to face it hand in hand, side by side.